evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Build with Blinky. In this episode of Build with Blinky, I will be going through the process of building a U-Wing, one of the largest ships from the new Star Wars story, Rogue One. There isn't much known yet about these new ships, but what I did know is that my first iteration was way too small. There's no use in trying to fix your mistakes by retrofitting a small ship with all the bigger things, so I just deleted everything. Kept the cockpit section for a small part, but mostly just rebuilt the whole thing from scratch again. It is important that in your ships you make sure that your build is stable, so connect it with a landing gear to the ground, but even better, use a strut with thrusters so that your build can't fly away. The biggest problem I had with the ship was that the references were so little. It's an unreleased ship, the film's not yet out, the concept art is not yet done, so I'm going from only a few sources here. The most important thing in building a replica is that you have a proper source. Here I used a top-down and side-view blueprint, available through Lucasfilm, Disney, where they showed some early concept art of the U-Wing. Guessing the size of a ship is never easy when using a 3/4 view or a more stylistic impressions, so it's always important that you try to get hands on that model or that blueprint file, the nice references, so you can actually block it out on paper and see where the things are supposed to go. This really helped me with connecting this back section and for example seeing where the wings would pivot. Being an Incan ship, which is the company in Star Wars which is responsible for the X, Y and A wings, we see this back in the cockpit design, which is heavily inspired by the Y-Wing, which is also why I thought at first that the ship would be as large as the Y-Wing. But instead, on reference, we see that there's complete crew quarters underneath, which I modeled out of course, where at least 4 Marines can stand in one of the openings. So the ship has been upgraded way more beyond that size, keeping the overall design the same, but of course upscaling. The wings of the U-Wing are the most interesting about the ship. They of course move back and forward and make the ship as unique as it is. Without it, it would look like a regular, I don't know, space truck, but with them we see that's more like a sci-fi, non-realistic, goofy ship that probably holds well in the Star Wars universe. They don't seem very functional, but none of the wings in Star Wars are functional. Maybe for the new TIE Striker, but who knows. And luckily I had the top-down image showing me how long the wings would extend from the forward section, and I guesstimated the actual angle they would take when extended beyond the normal range. I kept the interior of the ship rather bland. I kept it to a minimum, using the space mostly for fuel conservation. There are 2 large tanks in the behind of the ship, making maybe the hatch useless, but we'll see in the movie how it actually pans out. Mostly I now wanted to focus on how I'm gonna make the ship functional more than it already is. What I also did is adding some engine effects. The ships in Star Wars of course don't have simple yellow reddish fire strokes, they have blue and purple and awesome tricks, so I used some lights for that. Being a dropship, this ship of course needed to land on planets, so we go to the planet for the final step in the design. This step only consists of adding color and adding some extra thrusters to make sure that you can actually fly in planet atmosphere, which I will show a bit later. Now I want to focus on some of the exceptional points in this building process. For example, here I really needed the top-down view with the special dents, so some may call it, like the greebles. The hatch, the intakes on top, so I knew where to put the engines instead of guessing every time when I started again. Which really helped me in the building process and really sped it up. When you have that reference point on your ship, even if it's only a simple one, it really helps you with building. And also helps you when you disconnect the ship. So keep that in mind when you're building. Make sure you have enough copies laying around, or know your references. When something goes wrong, you want that to be not something that really hampers you and sets you back for days of work. Engine pods in replica ships are usually one of the hardest things, as of course Space Engineers only has small thrusters and they don't give a lot of feedback. What I needed to do is add some extra on the rims so that we had enough forward thrust to make a ship like this go fast enough. It's still a shame that Space Engineers doesn't allow stacking of thrusters to increase the power of a certain output point, for example. For the rest, you don't want your ship to be too blocky, so add some detail on the parts that the player will be looking at. For example, the back and of course the top. So, with that all done, we go back to the building process of balancing. You see that first you want to build it a bit upwards. You want to add enough thrusters, like a plethora, and then put them in places that you feel comfortable that they should be or would look good. And make sure your landing gears are there, that they are level. I had problems that they weren't level on this one and had to redo that again. But also make sure that you have your symmetry planes correctly. Otherwise you will be building through the whole ship without actually meaning to. We're now back where we left the speedrun and see that I'm still working on the outlets for the thrusters, which made it possible that the ship would actually fly in atmosphere. Removing it from wings because I thought first it would look cool, but it didn't, so I refrained from it, giving us the final step. Well, that brings us to coloring. I started with a brown rusty paint, making sure that the inside of the ship will be rusty and like old, so we could add the paint layer on top of that, so when the ship will break away we see this rust going back instead of having a completely white engine breaking off, which gives a bit extra effect. After painting, it's only a matter of flying, testing and crashing to see if your ship is done or not. In this case, well, I had to replace a few engine blocks because they were malfunctioning, but overall the ship felt good, it looked good, it looked like the images I used as reference, and it turned out really well. I like it. It's like a huge pod racer, but then from of course Rogue One, and it is a starship and it is a troop transport. So now the only thing left is that this will become an iconic ship from the Rogue One Star Wars story, and that the ship picks up some of the renown the X-Wing and the Y-Wing has gotten. I like the wing design, I like the overall shape when it's deployed and undeployed. Although without it, it probably would look like a space truck, but there's nothing wrong with space truck. I like my YV66 too, so that's that for that. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Build to Blinky. I hope you all would return for other builds, and please check this one out on the workshop and tell me what you think, and also tell me what to build next. From what series will it be? From what universe? Or, well, what are your ideas? I have plenty of ideas, but I of course want to know what your ideas are. So let me know in the comment section below, on my workshop, or whatever outlet you use to communicate with the world. I will find it, and I will see you all next time in Space Engineers. Enjoy the final descent of the U-Wing. I'll see you all next time. Thank you for having me.